Hello and welcome to Life After Gray Narcissist Divorce. I'm Paula, and if you like this video, please subscribe. Narcissists hate boundaries. In fact, if you set boundaries with narcissists, they're usually going to violate them because they want to be in power and control. And you establishing a boundary is saying to them, no, you are not in control. So a lot of times this does not work very well in trying to establish boundaries with a narcissist. It works with a regular person, but not a narcissist, because they will ignore your boundaries or up the ante or possibly even become physically violent. Now, if you're separated or divorced from the narcissist, then establish your boundaries and make sure that you are in an area of safety, and hopefully you will have a third party in there or some way to keep you safe and those boundaries established. When I was with my narcissistic ex and I did not know he was a narcissist, I started trying to stand up for myself and establish boundaries. And what happened was he upped the ante and actually brought in flying monkeys, and his behavior became more and more outrageous. So if you are still in a relationship with a narcissist, be careful that you are in a safe environment, safe for you to establish boundaries, because with some narcissists, if you try to establish boundaries, you are not going to be in a safe position because they could react violently to your boundaries. So if you feel like you're going to be leaving them soon, my advice is to keep it more under the cuff and don't rock any boats yet until you can get out safely, because a lot of them, like I said, they do not react well. Well, I had no idea that my ex was a narcissist when I tried establishing boundaries. I had been in therapy with him for very, very many years, 8 years with one set of therapists in Washington State, and we were working with another therapist in Florida here when these incidents came about, where I established a boundary. It had to do with him. He was becoming physically aggressive with my son, and our therapist had even told him that is not an effective way to discipline, but he did it anyway, and I stood up to him. Well, he did not like that one bit and tried to throw me out of the house, and I said, no, I am not leaving, and I ignored him and went on with my washing dishes or something. He went off in the bedroom, pouted, and what ended up happening is then he comes out later and says, I'm injured, I'm injured. And what he had been doing is throwing my son around, holding him down, etc. Well, in the fray, and my son at the time was 13, was 100 pounds, and he was 375 pounds. In all this holding him down and being physically aggressive, my son had scratched him, which is a defensive wound. So he started telling me, look, I'm injured. And because I didn't come in the room and play sympathy to him, because I did not feel sorry for him, because I felt that his behavior had been unacceptable. Well, what he did was called the neighbors, and the next thing I know, my neighbors are knocking on my door at like 10 p.m. at night to take my ex to the hospital. So in other words, they will up the ante. And there's more to the story that I don't want to tell of what happened the next day, but something really bad happened the next day that made us separate. But what I am saying is, they will ignore your boundaries. Now, I had tried to establish boundaries with him over other things in the past, such as spending, especially spending, because he had a spending problem. And it did not matter what I said or did. He was going to do what he was going to do anyway. I could not stop him or control him, and it did not matter what I thought or what I said. He was going to do what he wanted to do anyway. So my point being that narcissists hates your boundaries, they will ignore your boundaries, and they will do what they want to do anyway, and they will possibly bring in other people. So I'm just saying it is good for us to have boundaries. Probably if I had had boundaries to begin with, I never would have been involved with the narcissist to begin with. But once you're in it with them, they can become dangerous when you establish boundaries. So you really most likely need to get to a safe area before you start establishing the boundaries, or you need to be in a position of strength, because if you are still in a position of weakness and try to start establishing boundaries, their abuse is most likely going to escalate and get worse. So I just want to keep people safe and make them aware that establishing boundaries with narcissists is not the same as with ordinary people. Now, once we get away from them, it's really important that we learn how to establish boundaries and where we're weak and maybe why we got involved with these people to begin with. But I am just saying, if you want to start establishing boundaries, it's going to lead to a quicker discard most likely, and just be careful because you don't know the level of violence that that person might become capable of or what they might do. So anyway, thank you for stopping by, and if you like this video, please subscribe.